The rain in North Memphis didn't fall. It hit. It came down hard and sideways, bounced off the asphalt and soaked through everything it touched. Marcus Turner felt every drop. He was 42 years old, standing under the awning of a closed-down laundromat on Jackson Avenue, and his shoes had been wet for 3 days. His jeans were dark with water from the knee down. His hoodie smelled like sweat and mildew, and the dumpster he had slept behind the night before. He held a paper cup of cold coffee someone had given him an hour ago. He hadn't taken a sip yet. He was just holding it because his hands were cold and the cup was warm. That was the whole reason. Not gratitude, not thirst, just warmth for his fingers. Marcus had not always been this person. He used to wake up to an alarm clock on a nightstand next to a bed he owned. He used to walk across his own carpet to a bathroom with a shower that worked every single time. He used to stand in front of a closet full of clothes and pick something that fit the day. That life was real. It happened. But standing there on Jackson Avenue with the rain coming down and no place to go, that life felt like a movie he had watched once a long time ago. He remembered the plot, but could not feel any of it anymore. The fall happened 3 years ago. Not slowly like people think. Not a long slide into trouble. It happened fast and hard on the Tuesday afternoon in July. Marcus was working at a warehouse distribution center over by the airport.
He had been there 11 years. 11 years of loading trucks and checking inventory and showing up early and leaving late. He made $17 an hour. Not rich, not poor. Enough to rent a small house in Fraser. Enough to keep his 2008 Chevy Impala running. Enough to send his daughter $20 every week, even though she lived with her mother in South Haven. He was not a man who asked for much. He was a man who showed up. That was his whole thing. He showed up. That Tuesday, his back gave out. Not a dramatic thing. No loud pop, no falling down screaming. He just bent down to lift a box of auto parts, and his body said no. The pain hit like a hot knife from his lower back down to his left knee. He dropped the box. He stood there frozen. His boss walked over and asked what was wrong. Marcus said he didn't know. His boss told him to sit down for a minute. Marcus sat down. He never got back up that day. He went to the emergency room at Regional 1. They did an x-ray. They said it was a herniated disc pressing on a nerve. They gave him a prescription for painkillers and a note saying he could not lift more than 10 pounds for 8 weeks. 8 weeks. Marcus did not have 8 weeks of savings. He had maybe 3 weeks if he stretched everything. He took the prescription to the CVS on Cleveland Street and used his last $20 on the copay. The warehouse let him go 3 weeks later. They said it was not personal.
They said he could reapply when he had a full release from the doctor. Marcus did not have insurance. The doctor would not see him without insurance. The painkillers ran out after 10 days. The withdrawal hit him hard. He did not know that was coming. Nobody told him that part. He just knew he felt terrible and could not sleep, and his whole body hurt in ways that had nothing to do with his back. He sat on his couch in his little house in Fraser and watched the ceiling and tried to figure out what to do next. The rent ate his savings first, then the car payment, then the lights. He kept the phone on because he had to be able to call his daughter. That was the only thing he refused to lose. He paid that bill every month, even when it meant not eating for 2 days. He ate ramen noodles and bologna sandwiches and whatever was on sale at the Save-A-Lot. He lost 20 pounds without trying. His face looked different in the mirror, older, thinner, scared. The eviction came in October. The sheriff pinned the notice to his front door on a Friday afternoon. Marcus sat inside and watched it happen through the peephole. He did not open the door. He just stood there with his eye against the little piece of glass and watched a man in a uniform leave a piece of paper that said his whole life was about to get taken away. He stayed in that house for 3 more weeks until the sheriff came back and told him to leave. Marcus packed one backpack, a change of clothes, his phone charger,
A picture of his daughter, his birth certificate. Everything else stayed. The couch, the TV, the bed, the dishes, the pictures on the wall. All of it just stayed right where it was, like a museum of a life that no longer existed. He slept in his car for the first 2 months. The Chevy Impala became his bedroom, his kitchen, his closet, his whole world. He parked in different places every night so nobody would notice him. The Walmart parking lot on Austin P., the back of the church on James Road, the street outside the shuttered factory on Chelsea. He learned which spots were safe and which spots got a knock on the window at 3 in the morning. He learned how to sleep sitting up with his jacket over his face. He learned how to make a tank of gas last 2 weeks by never driving anywhere he did not have to. The car died in December. The transmission gave up on a cold night at the gas station on Thomas Street. Marcus put $5 of gas in the tank, got back in the driver's seat, put the car in reverse, and heard a sound like metal breaking in half. The car rolled backward 3 feet and stopped. It would not go forward. It would not go backward again. It just sat there. Marcus sat in the driver's seat for 45 minutes with his hands on the steering wheel. He did not cry. He did not scream. He just sat there and thought about how a person could work for 11 years at the same job and end up with nothing. Not a single thing to show for it. He left the car in the gas station parking lot. He took his backpack and started walking. He did not look back. That was the night he walked into the Memphis Union Mission for the first time. The shelter on Poplar Avenue was loud and crowded and smelled like bleach and bodies and bad food. The men inside looked at him the way men look at new men. Not mean, just watching. Just figuring out who he was and what he wanted and whether he was going to be a problem. Marcus found an empty bunk in the corner and sat down on the thin mattress. The man in the next bed was named Earl. Earl was 63 years old and had been homeless for 8 years. He told Marcus that on the first night. 8 years. Marcus could not imagine 8 days. But he stayed. The shelter had rules. You had to be out by 6 in the morning. You could not come back until 4 in the afternoon. You had to go to a chapel service if you wanted dinner. You had to check your backpack at the front desk. You had to stay in your bunk and be quiet after 10. Marcus followed every rule. He was good at following rules. He had always been good at that. The problem was that following rules did not get you out. Following rules just kept you from getting kicked out. Getting out required something else. Something Marcus had not found yet. His days took on a rhythm. Wake up at 5:15. Fold his blanket. Put on his shoes. Wait in line for the door to open. Walk to the public library on Poplar and McLean. Wait for the doors to open there too. Find a computer in the back corner. Spend 4 hours filling out job applications on websites that made him create a new account for every single application. He had a resume. It was short now. 11 years at the warehouse, 2 years at a tire shop before that, a GED from Trezevant High School. That was it. That was everything he had to offer. And every application asked the same question. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Marcus could answer no. But the next question was worse. Do you have reliable transportation? He did not. Do you have a permanent address? He did not. Do you have a working phone number? He did. That was the only box he could check yes. The phone was a cracked screen track phone he bought for $15 at the Family Dollar. He put $10 of minutes on it every month. Sometimes he could not afford the minutes. Sometimes the phone sat silent and dead in his pocket for days. But he kept it anyway. He kept it because the last number in his contacts was his daughter, Aaliyah. She was 15. She lived with her mother in South Haven, Mississippi, right across the state line. Marcus called her every Thursday at 7 o'clock. That was their time. He stood outside the shelter, or behind the library, or under the awning of a closed business, and he pressed the phone to his ear, and he listened to her tell him about school and track practice and the fight she had with her best friend and the grade she got on her history test. He told her he was fine. He told her he was working on something. He told her he loved her. He never told her where he slept. He never told her about the shelter. He never told her about the car. He told her everything except the truth. The truth would have killed him to say out loud. Thursday nights were the hardest. After the call ended, Marcus would stand wherever he was and hold the phone in his hand and watch the screen go dark. He would think about the sound of her voice. He would think about how she said daddy with that little lift at the end like a question, even when she was not asking anything. He would think about how she was growing up, and he was missing it, and there was nothing he could do about that, because he could not even afford a bus ticket to South Haven. The bus cost $12 one way. $12. He had slept on concrete for $12. He had gone without food for $12. But every time he got $12 together, something else took it. A pair of shoes from Goodwill because his soles had worn through, a new charger because his old one split, a meal because 3 days without food made his hands shake too hard to fill out applications.
The winter in Memphis was not like the winter up north, but it was cold enough. It got into the 20s at night. The shelter had bunks and heaters, and that was better than the street. But Marcus had seen the street. He had slept on the street 4 different nights when the shelter was full. He had curled up behind a dumpster behind the AutoZone on Summer Avenue. He had laid on cardboard behind the abandoned Kmart on Watkins. He had felt the cold come up through the cardboard and into his spine, and he had laid there and thought about how many people were sleeping in warm beds right now. Thousands, millions. People who had no idea how good they had it. He was not angry at them. He was just tired. Tired in a way that sleep could not fix. Tired in a way that went down to his bones. The soup kitchen at St. Mary's on Exchange Street fed him every day at noon. The line wrapped around the block. Old men, young men, a few women, a few kids. Marcus stood in that line and looked at the faces around him and wondered what each person's Tuesday looked like. What broke each one of them? What specific thing had happened to put them in this line holding a styrofoam tray? He never asked. That was the rule. You did not ask how someone got here. You just stood in line and nodded at the person in front of you and said, "Excuse me," when you bumped into someone. And you took the food and you said thank you, even if the food was bad. The food was usually bad, but it was warm.
Warm mattered more than taste. One day in February, a woman named Miss Gladys worked the serving line at St. Mary's. She was maybe 65, short gray hair, gold hoop earrings, an apron that said "Jesus loves you" on the front. She put a scoop of green beans on Marcus's tray, and then she looked at him. Not the quick look most people gave, a real look. She studied his face. She said, "You been coming here for 2 months." Marcus said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You got a place to sleep tonight?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "The shelter?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." She nodded. She put a second scoop of green beans on his tray. She said, "You got a good face, young man. Don't let this place steal it." Marcus did not know what to say to that. He just said thank you and walked to a table and sat down. He ate the green beans slowly. He thought about what she said. A good face. He had not thought about his face in months. He had not looked in a mirror in weeks. He did not know what his face looked like anymore, but Miss Gladys said it was good. He decided to believe her. The library became his office. The Memphis Public Library on Poplar was a big brick building with tall windows and computers that worked most of the time. Marcus knew every inch of that place. He knew which outlets worked and which ones did not. He knew which bathroom had the hot water that actually got hot. He knew which librarian was strict about the 2-hour computer limit and which one looked the other way if nobody was waiting.
His favorite was a woman named Mrs. Cooper. She was maybe 50, glasses on a chain, always wore a cardigan, even in summer. She never asked Marcus what he was doing on the computer. She never asked where he slept. She just said good morning every day, and sometimes she left a granola bar on the desk next to his computer. She never made eye contact when she did it. She just set it down and walked away. Marcus ate every single granola bar. He never said thank you because she was always gone before he could, but he thought it. He thought it loud. He applied to 30 jobs in February. 30. Warehouses, fast food, gas stations, car washes, janitorial work. Anything that did not require a degree or a car or an address. He got 3 callbacks. The first was a pizza place on Summer Avenue. The manager asked if he had a car for delivery. Marcus said no. The manager said sorry and hung up. The second was a car wash on Union. The manager said come in for an interview. Marcus walked 3 miles to get there. He waited 20 minutes in the lobby. The manager came out, a kid maybe 25 years old with a fresh haircut and clean fingernails. He looked at Marcus. He looked at Marcus's shoes, the shoes from Goodwill with the duct tape holding the sole on. He looked at Marcus's hands, the hands that were scarred from cold and work and living outside. He said, "We'll call you." They did not call. The third callback was a warehouse in the industrial district off Lamar. The manager sounded older on the phone. He asked Marcus to come in at 9 the next morning. Marcus said he would be there. He had no way to get there except his own 2 feet. The warehouse was 6 miles from the shelter. He left at 6:30 in the morning. He walked through the cold. He walked past boarded-up houses and empty lots and check-cashing stores and churches with signs that said God is good. He got to the warehouse at 8:50. He was sweating even though it was cold. He went inside. The manager was a black man named Mr. James. He looked to be about 60. He had a bad knee. Marcus could tell by the way he walked. Mr. James sat him down in a plastic chair next to a desk covered in papers. He asked Marcus about the warehouse job. Marcus told him 11 years. Loading trucks, inventory, never late, never missed a day, until his back went out. Mr. James nodded. He asked about the gap in the resume. Marcus told him about the back, about the eviction, about the car, about the shelter. He told the whole truth. He did not know why. He just let it come out. When he finished, Mr. James was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I slept in my car for 6 months in 1998. Marcus looked up. Mr. James nodded. He said, "My wife left. I lost my job. I lost my house. I lost everything except my truck. I slept in that truck for 6 months. Then a man named Big George gave me a chance at a loading dock. I worked every day for 20 years. Now I run this place."
Marcus did not know what to say. Mr. James said, "I got one position open. It pays $12 an hour. It's just loading boxes. Can you do it?" Marcus said yes. Mr. James said, "You got a place to stay?" Marcus said, "The shelter." Mr. James said, "That's fine. Just show up on Monday, 7 o'clock. Don't be late." Marcus stood up. He shook Mr. James's hand. He walked outside. He walked 3 blocks before he stopped walking. He leaned against a telephone pole and put his head down and cried. Not sad crying, not happy crying, just crying. Just everything that had been inside him for 3 years, finally coming out through his eyes. He stood there for 10 minutes. Then he wiped his face with his sleeve. He started walking back to the shelter. He had 4 days until Monday. 4 days to figure out how to be a person again. 4 days to figure out how to show up and not mess this up. He walked faster. The rain had stopped. The sun was out. For the first time in a long time, Marcus felt something that might have been hope. He did not trust it. Hope had fooled him before. But he felt it anyway. He felt it in his chest, small and warm like the coffee cup that morning. He kept walking. He did not look back. Monday morning came cold and gray. Marcus woke up at 4:15. He did not have an alarm. He just woke up.
His body had learned to wake up early because early meant first in line for the bathroom, and first in line for the sink, and first in line for the mirror before anyone else could crowd in. He washed his face with cold water. He brushed his teeth with a toothbrush he kept in his pocket. He put on the cleanest clothes he had, jeans with no visible stains, a black hoodie that was faded but not ripped, the shoes with the duct tape. He did not have better shoes. He had to wear the duct tape shoes. He looked at himself in the mirror. Miss Gladys said he had a good face. He tried to see what she saw. He saw a tired man, a thin man, a man with gray in his beard that was not bare 3 years ago. But his eyes were clear. That was something. His eyes were clear because he had not touched a drink or a drug in 3 years. He did not have a problem with either one. He just knew that people who fell apart often fell apart with something in their hand. So he kept his hands empty. That was his choice. That was the one thing he controlled. He left his shelter at 5:30. The warehouse was 6 miles away. He had walked 6 miles before. He knew what it felt like. He knew where the hills were and where the sidewalks disappeared and where the loose dogs liked to run out from behind fences. He walked fast, not running, just a steady pace that ate up the ground. The sun was not up yet. The streetlights made everything look orange and empty. He passed houses where people were still sleeping. He passed a church with a light on inside. He passed a man sleeping on a bus bench with a blanket over his head. Marcus looked at that man and felt something complicated. Pity. Recognition. Fear. That could have been him. That could still be him if this job did not work out. He kept walking. He got to the warehouse at 6:40, 20 minutes early. Mr. James was already there. He was standing by the loading dock with a clipboard and a cup of coffee. He looked at Marcus and nodded. He said, "You walked." Marcus said, "Yes, sir." Mr. James said, "I figured." He pointed to a door at the side of the building. "Go through there. Break room is on the left. There is coffee in the pot. Help yourself." Marcus went inside. The break room smelled like old coffee and floor cleaner and something sweet like a donut someone had eaten an hour ago. There was a coffee pot on a counter, a box of powdered creamer next to it, a bag of sugar. Marcus poured himself a cup. He added 2 sugars. He stood there and held the cup and felt the warmth through the styrofoam and thought about how different this warmth was from the warmth of a coffee someone handed him on the street. This coffee was his. He had earned it by showing up. He drank it slow. The work was hard. Loading boxes onto pallets, wrapping the pallets in plastic, moving the pallets with a hand jack. 12 hours of standing and bending and lifting. Marcus's back hurt by noon. It hurt worse by 3. By 5, he was moving slower than he wanted.
But he did not stop. He could not stop. Stopping meant someone would notice. Noticing meant someone would think he could not do the job. Thinking he could not do the job meant he would be back on the street. So he kept moving. He lifted the boxes, he wrapped the pallets, he moved the hand jack. He did not complain, he did not ask for help. He just worked. At 6 o'clock, Mr. James came over. He said, "First day is done, you did good." Marcus nodded. He did not trust his voice. Mr. James said, "Same time tomorrow." Marcus said, "Yes, sir." He walked out of the warehouse. The sun was down. The air was cold. He had 6 miles to walk back to the shelter. His feet hurt, his back hurt, his shoulders hurt. But he was smiling. He did not know he was smiling until he passed a woman walking her dog, and she looked at him strange because a man walking alone at night in North Memphis should not be smiling. But he was. He walked faster. The shelter gave him a bunk that night. He laid down on the thin mattress and closed his eyes and went over the day in his head. Every box he lifted, every pallet he wrapped, every word Mr. James said, he wanted to remember all of it. He wanted to prove that he could do this. Not just for Mr. James, for himself. He fell asleep thinking about the coffee in the break room, the way the cup felt in his hand, the way the sugar tasted. Small things, but small things were all he had right now. Small things were enough. The first paycheck came after 2 weeks.
$387. Marcus looked at the direct deposit notification on his phone and stared at the number for a long time. He had not seen a number that big in his account in over a year. He wanted to spend it on something stupid. A nice meal, a new hoodie, a bus ticket just to ride around and look at the city like a person who belonged somewhere. He did not do any of that. He walked to the Family Dollar and bought a new pair of work boots, $39, steel toe, brown leather. He put them on right there in the store. He walked out of the Family Dollar and threw the duct tape shoes in the trash can on the corner. He did not look at them. He did not say goodbye. He just walked away. The second paycheck paid for a room, not an apartment, a room. A woman named Miss Bernice rented rooms in her house on Chelsea Avenue. She was 72 years old. Her children had grown up and moved away. Her husband had died 5 years ago. She had 3 empty bedrooms and a fixed income that did not stretch far enough. She put an ad on the bulletin board of the library. Marcus saw it on a Tuesday afternoon. He called the number. Miss Bernice answered on the second ring. She said, "Come by at 6." Marcus came by at 6. Miss Bernice opened the door and looked at him. She looked at his boots. She looked at his hands. She looked at his face. She said, "You got a job?" Marcus said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You drink?" He said, "No, ma'am." She said, "You do drugs?" He said, "No, ma'am."
She said, "You got a woman?" He said, "No, ma'am." She said, "Good. The room is $300 a month. That includes utilities and 1 meal a day. Dinner at 6. You miss dinner, you don't eat." Marcus said, "Yes, ma'am." He paid her $300 that night. He went back to the shelter the next morning and packed his backpack. He said goodbye to Earl. Earl said, "You made it out." Marcus said, "Not yet." He walked to Chelsea Avenue. He opened the door to his room. It was small, a twin bed with a blue blanket, a dresser with 3 drawers, a window that faced the street, a closet with no door. He set his backpack on the bed. He sat down on the bed. He looked at the 4 walls. They were his walls, not a shelter wall, not a dumpster wall, not a car window, his walls. He laid down on the blue blanket and put his arm over his eyes and breathed. The room smelled like laundry detergent and old wood and something sweet like vanilla. Miss Bernice had put an air freshener in the corner. Marcus cried again. Just a little, just enough to feel it. Dinner at Miss Bernice's table was at 6 o'clock sharp. She made meatloaf that first night, mashed potatoes, canned green beans, a glass of sweet tea. Marcus sat at her kitchen table and ate every bite. She sat across from him and ate her own plate. She did not ask questions. She just ate. When Marcus finished, she said, "You want more?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." She got up and cut him another piece of meatloaf. She put it on his plate and sat back down.
She said, "You need to gain weight." He said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Stop saying ma'am. Call me Miss Bernice." He said, "Yes, ma'am." Then he laughed. She laughed too. It was the first time Marcus had laughed in longer than he could remember. It felt strange in his throat, but good. It felt good. The job at the warehouse continued. Marcus showed up every day. He never missed a day. He was never late. He worked hard even when nobody was watching. Mr. James noticed. One day in April, Mr. James called him into the office. He said, "I'm moving you to the day shift. Better hours, better pay, $14 an hour." Marcus said, "Thank you." Mr. James said, "Don't thank me. You earned it." Marcus went back to the warehouse floor and loaded boxes and thought about what Mr. James said. "You earned it." He had not heard those words in a very long time. He had forgotten what they felt like. They felt like someone handing him a cold glass of water on a hot day. They felt like someone seeing him. Not the homeless man, not the eviction, not the duct tape shoes. Him. Marcus started saving money. $50 a week went into a savings account he opened at the credit union on Poplar. The account required a minimum balance of $25. He put in $100 to start. He added $50 every Friday. He watched the number grow. $150, $200, $250. It was not a lot of money, but it was his. Every dollar came from his hands. Every dollar meant something. He called Aaliyah every Thursday. He still stood outside Miss Bernice's house because the reception was better on the porch. He told her about the room. He told her about the job. He told her about Miss Bernice's meatloaf. He did not tell her about the shelter. He did not tell her about the 6-mile walks. He did not tell her about the duct tape shoes. He told her the good parts. She said, "Daddy, I'm proud of you." He said, "Thank you, baby." He meant it. She meant it. They both sat on their ends of the phone and held the silence for a moment before hanging up. That silence was full of things neither of them knew how to say. But the silence was okay. The silence meant they were still connected. The silence meant love was still there, even when words were not. May brought heat. Memphis heat came early that year. By the middle of the month, the temperature was in the 90s. The warehouse had no air conditioning in the loading bay. The fans just pushed hot air around. Marcus drank water constantly. He sweat through his shirt every day. His boots got heavy with sweat, but he kept working. He had no choice. The work was the only thing between him and the street. He thought about that every morning when he put on his boots. He thought about it every night when he took them off. The street was still there. It had not gone anywhere. It was waiting for him to make a mistake. He was not going to make a mistake. In June, Mr. James pulled Marcus into the office again. He said, "There is a supervisor position opening up. It pays $18 an hour. You want it?" Marcus said yes. Mr. James said, "You need to get your GED." Marcus said, "I have my GED." Mr. James shook his head. He said, "You need to get some college. Just a little. A certificate. Something that says you can manage people. There's a program at Southwest Tennessee Community College. Night classes. 2 nights a week. 10 weeks. The company will pay for it." Marcus said, "I don't know." Mr. James said, "That's fear talking. Don't let fear make your decisions." Marcus was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "Okay." Mr. James handed him a piece of paper with a phone number on it. "Call this lady. Her name is Dr. Ross. She will get you signed up." Marcus took the paper. He folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. He went back to the warehouse floor. He loaded boxes. He thought about school. He had not been in a classroom since he was 17 years old. He was 42. 25 years. He did not know if he could do it. But Mr. James said not to let fear make his decisions. So he called Dr. Ross the next day. Dr. Ross answered on the first ring. Her voice was warm and fast. She talked like she had places to go and people to see. She said, "Marcus Turner, Mr. James told me about you. You start July 10th, Monday and Wednesday nights, 6 to 9. Can you do that?" Marcus said yes. She said, good. Show up on time. Bring a notebook and a pen. Don't be late.
She hung up before he could say anything else. Marcus stood there holding the phone. He had just enrolled in college, community college, but college? He had never said those words about himself. Marcus Turner is going to college. He said it out loud on Miss Bernice's porch. Nobody heard him, except a stray cat sleeping on the step. The cat did not react, but Marcus did. He smiled. He went inside and ate dinner. Miss Bernice made fried chicken that night. He ate 3 pieces. He did not feel guilty. He needed the weight. The first night of class was July 10th. Marcus left work at 5. He walked to the bus stop on Lamar. He had learned the bus system by then. He knew which buses went where and how much they cost and which routes ran late. The bus to Southwest cost $1.75. He had the exact change in his pocket. He sat in the back. He watched the city go by. Houses, churches, liquor stores, daycares, check-cashing places, a man selling watermelons out of a truck, a woman pushing a stroller with a toddler asleep inside. Memphis was a hard city, but it was his city. He knew its streets, he knew its sounds, he knew its people. He belonged here, even when he had nothing. That was something he had learned on the street. Belonging is not about what you own. Belonging is about what you know. The classroom was in a building that smelled like floor wax and old paper. The desks were small. The chairs were hard. There were 15 other students in the class.
Most of them were younger than Marcus. A few were older. A woman named Denise sat next to him. She was 53. She worked at a daycare during the day. She said she wanted to be a manager so she could make more money and help her daughter pay for college. Marcus told her why he was there. She nodded. She said, "We got this." He believed her. The class was called Introduction to Supervision. The teacher was a man named Professor Webb. He was maybe 35. He wore glasses and a bow tie and talked with his hands. He said, "Supervision is not about telling people what to do. Supervision is about helping people do what they already know how to do." Marcus wrote that down in his notebook. He wrote it in capital letters, helping people do what they already know how to do. He underlined it twice. He had never thought about work that way. He had always thought about work as showing up and doing what you were told. But Professor Webb was saying something different. He was saying that a good boss makes people better. Marcus thought about Mr. James. Mr. James made him better. Mr. James saw something in him that Marcus did not even see in himself. That was what Marcus wanted to be. Not a boss, a helper, someone who saw people. The 10 weeks went by fast. Marcus went to class every Monday and Wednesday. He did his homework on the bus. He read the textbook in his room at night. He studied for the final exam at Miss Bernice's kitchen table. She brought him coffee and sandwiches and told him he was doing good. He passed the class with a B. Professor Webb wrote a note on his final exam. It said, "You have a natural instinct for this. Keep going." Marcus kept the note in his pocket for a week. He read it every morning before work. The supervisor position opened up in September. Marcus applied. He had to do an interview with Mr. James and 2 other managers from the company. He wore the only nice shirt he owned, a blue button-down he bought at Goodwill for $4. He shaved his beard. He cut his own hair with clippers Miss Bernice kept in the bathroom closet. He looked in the mirror. Miss Gladys was right. He had a good face. He went to the interview. He sat in a plastic chair in Mr. James's office. The 2 other managers asked him questions. What would you do if an employee was late every day? How would you handle a conflict between 2 workers? What is your biggest weakness? Marcus answered every question honestly. He said, "My biggest weakness is that I do not trust good news. I have been knocked down enough times that I wait for the other shoe to drop." The managers looked at each other. Mr. James smiled. He said, "That is not a weakness. That is experience." Marcus got the job. The promotion came with a raise, $18 an hour. A small office with a desk and a chair and a computer that worked. A window that looked out at the loading bay.
Marcus sat at that desk on his first day as a supervisor and looked out the window at the men loading boxes. He knew those men. He had been those men 6 months ago. He knew how their backs hurt. He knew how their feet hurt. He knew how they worried about money and rent and their kids and their cars and everything else that kept them up at night. He walked out onto the loading bay floor. He introduced himself to each man. He learned their names. He asked about their families. He asked about their weekends. He did not act like a boss. He acted like a person, because that was what he was, a person who had been in the gutter and climbed out, a person who knew that the man loading boxes was not his job.
The man loading boxes was a father, a son, a brother, a man trying to make it through the week without falling apart. Marcus saw himself in every single one of them. He never forgot that. The years after that moved differently, not faster exactly, just heavier with meaning. Marcus stayed at the warehouse for 2 more years. He learned every part of the operation. He could run the loading dock blindfolded. He knew which drivers were reliable and which ones made excuses. He knew which employees needed a firm hand and which ones just needed someone to ask how their mama was doing. Mr. James noticed. He always noticed. One day he called Marcus into the office and closed the door. He said, "I'm retiring next year. The company is going to need a new operations manager."
That job pays $65,000 a year. You want it. Marcus sat down. He did not mean to sit down. His legs just did it. $65,000. He had never made more than $18 an hour in his life. He did the math in his head. That was more than twice what he made now. That was rent and food and savings and a car and money to send Aaliyah for college. That was a life, a real life. He said, "What do I need to do?" Mr. James said, "Finish your associate degree. Southwest has a program. 2 more semesters. The company will pay for it, same as before." Marcus said yes. He did not hesitate this time. He did not let fear talk. He just said yes. The associate degree took 14 months. Marcus took classes at night and on weekends. He studied in his room at Miss Bernice's house. He studied on the bus. He studied during his lunch break at work. He took classes in business math and communication and human resources. He learned how to read a profit and loss statement. He learned how to write a performance review. He learned how to have hard conversations with people without making them feel small. Professor Webb taught 2 of his classes. He remembered Marcus from the first class. He said, "You are not the same person who sat in my classroom 2 years ago." Marcus said, "I feel like the same person." Professor Webb shook his head. He said, "The same person would not be sitting here. The same person would have given up. You did not give up. That is the difference."
Marcus graduated with his associate degree in May. He was 44 years old. Miss Bernice came to the ceremony. She wore a yellow dress and a hat with flowers on it. She sat in the front row and clapped louder than anyone. Mr. James came too. He sat in the back. He did not clap. He just nodded. But Marcus saw him. He saw the nod. That nod meant more than any applause. That nod meant, "I told you so." That nod meant, "I saw something in you, and I was right." Marcus walked across the stage and shook hands with the college president and took his diploma and walked back to his seat. He held the diploma in his hands. It was a piece of paper, but it was not just a piece of paper. It was proof. Proof that he could learn. Proof that he could change. Proof that the man who slept behind a dumpster was not the man he had to be forever. The operations manager position opened in July. Marcus applied. He interviewed with the regional vice president, a white man from Nashville named Mr. Thompson, who wore expensive shoes and talked with his teeth clenched. Mr. Thompson asked Marcus about his experience. Marcus told him, 11 years on the loading dock, 2 years as a supervisor, an associate degree in business. He did not mention the shelter. He did not mention the car. He did not mention the duct tape shoes. Those things were not relevant anymore. Mr. Thompson asked, "Why should I give you this job?" Marcus said, "Because I know this warehouse better than anyone. I have loaded every box on that dock. I have wrapped every pallet. I have fixed every broken hand jack. I have hired people who other managers would not hire. I have given chances to people who had nowhere else to go, and every single one of them showed up. Every single one of them worked hard, because I treated them like humans, not like labor." Mr. Thompson was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You start August 1st. Marcus walked out of that interview and went straight to the bathroom. He locked the door. He leaned against the wall. He put his hand over his mouth so nobody would hear him crying. He cried for 5 minutes. Then he washed his face. He looked at himself in the mirror. The face looking back at him was not the face from Jackson Avenue. That face had been hollow and scared and hungry. This face had color in the cheeks. This face had light in the eyes. This face looked like a man who had been through something and come out the other side. He smiled at himself. He said out loud, "You did this." He unlocked the door. He went back to work. The first year as operations manager was hard, harder than the loading dock, harder than the shelter. The responsibility sat on his chest like a weight. He was responsible for 47 employees,
47 families, 47 rent payments, 47 car notes, 47 sets of kids who needed shoes and food and school supplies. If he made a mistake, 47 people could suffer.
He thought about that every morning when he walked through the door. He thought about it every night when he left. He did not take a single day off in the first year, not one. He came in early, he stayed late, he learned every employee's name and their kids' names and their problems and their hopes. He kept a notebook in his desk, not for work stuff, for personal stuff. LaToya's son has asthma. James is taking care of his mother. Derek is going through a divorce. He wrote it all down. He read it every morning. He wanted to remember. He wanted to be the kind of boss who remembered. The money changed things. Marcus paid off the credit card he had not used in 3 years. He bought a car, a 2015 Honda Civic with 80,000 miles. Nothing fancy, but it started every time. It had heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summer. He drove it to work every day and parked it in the employee lot and walked inside with his head up. He opened a real savings account, not the credit union account with the minimum balance, a real account at a real bank. He put money in it every month. He watched the number grow, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. He had never seen numbers like that in his life. He did not spend it. He just looked at it sometimes. He looked at it and reminded himself that he was safe. He was not going back to the street. The money was his shield, his armor, his proof that the bad years were behind him. But money did not fix everything. Marcus learned that the hard way. He tried to call his ex-wife, Tanya. They had been divorced for 8 years. She had moved on. She had a new husband, a new house, a new life. Marcus wanted to tell her he was okay. He wanted to show her that he had turned things around. He wanted to hear her say she was proud of him. He called her number. She answered on the 4th ring. She said hello. He said, "Tanya, it's Marcus." There was a long pause. Then she said, "What do you want?" Marcus said, "I just wanted to say I'm doing better. I have a good job now. I have a place to live. I wanted you to know." She said, "That's good, Marcus. I'm happy for you. But you need to leave me alone. I have a family now. You are not part of it." She hung up. Marcus held the phone and listened to the silence. He understood. He did not blame her. He had hurt her. Not on purpose. But hurt is hurt, no matter the intention. He had lost the house. He had lost the car. He had lost everything they built together. She had to start over because of him. She had to explain to their daughter why Daddy was not coming home. That was not something a phone call could fix. That was not something money could fix. Some things just stay broken. Marcus put the phone down. He sat in his car in the parking lot of the warehouse and watched the sun go down. He did not cry. He just sat there. He let himself feel the weight of what he had lost. It was heavy, but he could carry it. He had carried heavier things. Aaliyah was different.
She was 17 now, a senior in high school. She had grown into a tall girl with her mother's smile and her father's eyes. Marcus drove to South Haven to see her on the first Saturday of every month. He took her to breakfast at the Waffle House on Goodman Road. They sat in the same booth every time, the one by the window. She ordered waffles with extra syrup. He ordered eggs and toast and coffee. They talked about school and friends and college applications. Aaliyah wanted to go to the University of Memphis. She wanted to study nursing. She wanted to help people the way nobody helped her daddy when he was down. She said that once. She said, "I want to be a nurse because nobody helped you when you needed it." Marcus almost choked on his coffee. He said, "Baby, people helped me. A lot of people. Miss Gladys, Mrs. Cooper, Mr. James, Miss Bernice. They helped me." She said, "But not the people who should have helped you. The people who were supposed to." He did not have an answer for that. She was right. The people who should have helped him did not. His own family, his own brothers, his own mother before she passed. They turned their backs. They closed their doors. They said sorry and meant not sorry at all. But Marcus did not want Aaliyah to carry that anger. He said, "The only thing that matters is that I am here now. I am here. I am not going anywhere." She looked at him for a long time. Then she reached across the table and took his hand. She squeezed it. He squeezed back.
They did not say anything else. They did not need to. The second year as operations manager was easier than the first. Marcus knew what he was doing now. He had earned the respect of his team. They came to him with problems. They trusted him to fix things. He fixed what he could. He admitted when he could not. He learned that being a good boss did not mean having all the answers. It meant knowing how to find the answers. It meant being honest about what you did not know. It meant apologizing when you were wrong. Marcus apologized a lot in that second year. He made mistakes. He forgot things. He misread situations. But every time he apologized, his team respected him more. They had never had a boss who said sorry. They had only had bosses who made excuses or blamed someone else. Marcus was different. He was not afraid to be wrong. He had been wrong about so much in his life. What was one more thing? Mr. James retired in March. The warehouse threw him a party in the break room. There was a sheet cake that said, "Thank you, Mr. James," in blue icing. There were balloons. There were speeches. Marcus stood up and said a few words. He said, "Mr. James gave me a chance when nobody else would." He looked at a man sleeping in a shelter and saw a supervisor. He looked at a man with duct-tape shoes and saw a manager. I would not be standing here if not for him. That is the truth. Mr. James did not cry, but his eyes were wet.
He shook Marcus's hand and pulled him close and said, "Now you do the same for someone else." Marcus nodded. He promised himself right then that he would find someone like him, someone who needed a chance, someone who just needed one person to look past the shoes and see the man. He found that person 6 months later. His clothes were clean but worn. His shoes were falling apart. Marcus saw himself in DeAndre the second they met. He saw the same fear behind the eyes, the same hope that was too scared to come out. Marcus hired him. He put him on the loading dock. He told the other supervisors to watch out for him, not to go easy on him, to watch out for him, to give him a chance to prove himself. DeAndre showed up every day. He worked hard, he kept his head down, he did not complain. 6 months later, Marcus promoted him to a lead position. 12 months later, DeAndre got his own apartment, his own keys, his own door that locked from the inside. Marcus went to see the apartment. It was small, 1 bedroom, a kitchen with a 2-burner stove, a bathroom with a shower that dripped. DeAndre showed him around like it was a mansion. He said, "This is my place, mine." Marcus said, "Yes, it is." He hugged DeAndre. He did not plan to hug him. It just happened. DeAndre hugged him back.
They stood there in that tiny apartment and held on to each other for a moment. 2 men who had been through the fire. 2 men who knew what the other had survived. 2 men who would never forget where they came from. Marcus bought a house in Fraser, the same neighborhood where he had lost everything. The house was small, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a porch that sagged on one side, a backyard full of weeds. But it was his. He paid cash, $37,000. He had saved every penny for 2 years. He did not want a mortgage. He did not want to owe anyone anything. He wanted to own 4 walls and a roof that did not leak. He fixed the porch himself. He pulled the weeds. He painted the living room a soft gray. He bought a couch from a furniture store, not Goodwill, not a thrift store, a real furniture store with a delivery truck and a warranty. He sat on that couch on the first night in his house and looked around at the empty rooms and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Peace. Not happiness. Happiness was loud and bright. Peace was quiet and still. Peace was sitting on a new couch in a house you owned and not being afraid of what tomorrow would bring. That was what Marcus felt. Peace. He kept the room at Miss Bernice's house for 2 months after he bought the house. He did not tell her why. He just kept paying the rent. He came by every Sunday for dinner. He sat at her kitchen table and ate her meatloaf and her fried chicken and her banana pudding.
He listened to her talk about her garden and her church and her neighbor who played music too loud. One Sunday, she looked at him and said, "You bought a house, didn't you?" Marcus said, "How did you know?" She said, "Because you stopped sleeping here 2 months ago. I may be old, but I am not stupid." Marcus laughed. He said, "I did not want you to be alone." Miss Bernice shook her head. She said, "I have been alone for 5 years. I am used to it. You go live in your house, but you come back for dinner every Sunday. That is not a request." Marcus said, "Yes, ma'am." He gave her the key to his house. He said, "In case you ever need a place." She took the key. She put it in her pocket. She did not say thank you. She did not need to. The 3rd year as operations manager brought more money and more responsibility. Marcus was making $72,000 now. He had health insurance. He had a retirement account. He had a life that looked normal from the outside, but the inside was still healing. The inside had scars that did not show up in a bank balance. He still woke up sometimes in the middle of the night with his heart pounding. He still checked the locks on his doors 3 times before bed.
He still got nervous when his phone rang with an unknown number. He still looked at people sleeping on the street and felt a pull in his chest that he could not describe. It was not pity. It was recognition. He knew what they were feeling.
He knew the cold and the hunger and the fear and the shame. He knew what it was like to be invisible, to walk down a street and have people look through you like you were made of glass. He never wanted to forget that. Forgetting would be a kind of betrayal. Forgetting would mean he had become someone else. He was not someone else. He was Marcus Turner. The same Marcus Turner who slept behind a dumpster. The same Marcus Turner who walked 6 miles to a job that paid $12 an hour. The same Marcus Turner who cried in a bathroom because someone finally said yes. He was not someone else. He was just someone more. Aaliyah graduated from high school in May. Marcus drove to South Haven for the ceremony. He wore a suit he bought at Men's Warehouse, his first new suit in 20 years. He sat in the audience next to Tanya and her new husband. They did not speak, but they sat in the same row. That was enough. When Aaliyah walked across the stage, Marcus stood up. He clapped, he cheered, he whistled. He did not care who was watching. That was his daughter, his baby. She had done what he could not do. She had graduated. She was going to college. She was going to be a nurse. She was going to help people. He cried. He did not try to hide it. Tanya saw him crying. She looked at him for a moment. Then she looked away. But Marcus saw something in her face before she turned. Something soft. Something that looked like the old days. He did not know what it meant. He did not need to know.
He just knew it was there. After the ceremony, Aaliyah ran to him. She threw her arms around his neck and hugged him tight. She said, "You came." He said, "I would not miss it for anything." She said, "I love you, Daddy." He said, "I love you too, baby, more than you will ever know." She pulled back and looked at him. She said, "I know." That was all, just "I know." But it was everything. Marcus drove home that night with the windows down and the radio playing something old and slow. He thought about the man he had been, the man on Jackson Avenue with the cold coffee and the wet shoes. That man had no idea what was coming. That man thought his life was over. That man had given up hope. But hope had not given up on him. Hope had been waiting. Hope had been hiding in a library and a soup kitchen and a warehouse and a room in an old woman's house. Hope had been waiting for him to get out of his own way and just keep walking. One step at a time, one day at a time, one box at a time. That was all it took. Not a miracle, not luck, just showing up. Every single day, even when it hurt, even when it was cold, even when nobody was watching. Just showing up. The moral of this story is not about money. It is not about houses or cars or job titles. Those things are nice. Those things make life easier. But they are not the point. The point is that a person can lose everything and still be worth something. A person can fall as far as it is possible to fall and still get back up.
A person can be invisible to the whole world and still be seen by someone who matters. Marcus Turner was saved by a librarian who left granola bars on a desk. He was saved by a woman in a soup kitchen who said he had a good face. He was saved by a boss who remembered what it felt like to sleep in a truck. He was saved by a 72-year-old woman who rented him a room and fed him meatloaf. He was saved by people who had nothing to gain and everything to give. And then he became one of those people. That is the real story. Not the climb. What you become on the climb. Who you help along the way. Who you see when everyone else looks away. Marcus Turner still lives in Fraser. He still works at the warehouse. He still eats dinner at Miss Bernice's house every Sunday. He still calls Aaliyah every Thursday. She is in nursing school now. She is going to graduate next spring. Marcus is already saving money for her tuition. He has a picture of her on his desk at work. In the picture, she is wearing her high school graduation cap and gown. She is smiling. She has her father's eyes. Every morning when Marcus sits down at his desk, he looks at that picture. He looks at her eyes. He sees himself in them. Not the man he was, the man he became. The man who kept walking. The man who did not give up. The man who learned that the only way out is through, and that the only way through is together. What would you do if you saw someone on the street today? Would you see them?
Would you really see them? Or would you look through them like they were made of glass? Marcus Turner was seen. That is why he is alive. That is why he is standing. That is why he is here to tell this story. Someone saw him. Someone helped him. Someone believed in him before he believed in himself. Now it is your turn. Someone is waiting for you to see them. Do not look away.